We've got Stacie, Stefan, and Pat from Degrassi.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I think we've seen most of the people here during the weekend. Yeah.
I think these guys were hiding when that song came on.
Yeah.
They didn't want to come out.
I thought you guys were watching the video, so that's why I didn't want to walk in and interrupt
I
the
thought you
video.
were
Like,
watching the video too.
You're just listening to the audio. Okay, we should go.
No, I thought it was going to be a whole dance routine coming
yeah.
out, and that's what I
Wherever
thought
we
you were
go.
doing, Matt.
Wherever we go. Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone to the Degrassi High panel. We're both very excited. Phyllis is very excited.
Very excited. By the way, your show, well, Degrassi, like when you were a teenager, is on YouTube, so you can watch all the episodes, which I did last night, and it was all of them, but I tried to do my best.
A lot of television.
Did not
for
go to
one
bed
night.
until 4, so
Yeah.
I'm a little tired, not gonna lie. That was great.
Well, thank you, and thanks, C.A.P.E, for having us.
Yes.
It's been really fun to spend the weekend in Cornwall with all the fans, so it's been really great.
And Randy and Carol have been fantastic hosts, and as usual, put on a really, really good show. So if we could just quickly give them a round of thank you for all their efforts doing this. I think this is year 4 or 5? 5, man.
5 years.
And I was here. I was lucky enough to be here for the inaugural event that took place, and it was just wonderful. That I absolutely was excited to be invited back and to be able to bring my fellow cast members with us is just again just part of that wonderful honor. And we're just so happy that many of you who I've met in the past have come back again to say hello. It is kind of like a family reunion every time we see you guys, and we just appreciate the fact that even after 30 years, the show still means something meaningful to all of you, and that just makes us feel really special. So thank you for that.
Well, that's incredible. And Stefan, we were talking yesterday about it, how you did Degrassi, and then you went to film a movie in the States, I believe.
Oh, well, it was actually, I did a couple shows. I did a show called LA Complex there. And
Yeah.
I also,
So good. Oh my God.
And but I also directed Degrassi Goes Hollywood, and that was we shot a bunch of that in LA as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and you came back and you said it just exploded even more.
Well, when I went to school, I went after Degrassi Junior, after Degrassi High, and we actually after we shot schools out, I went to theater school in LA. And I think it got bigger during those 5 years while I was away because it was in reruns now. So all these kids that were watching, after high school, it was a whole new fan base that hadn't seen it the first time around. So what we thought, I think, was going to end after the initial 5 years that we made the show. We're like, oh, no one's going to remember the show in a couple years.
Yeah.
It just got bigger and bigger until they were like, hey, I think we need to bring the show back as Next Generation. So
Yeah. And for all of you, did you feel when you were filming the show that this was something special? Or like you said, like, oh, okay, it'll last for a little bit and then we'll kind of all move on? Or...
Well, they asked us if it was something we wanted to do. And I think I know for me personally, it's like I wouldn't have done it if I didn't feel that people wanted it to come back. Because then we would have
the
just...
original show, did you know that was going to be special?
No,
Yeah.
no, the original
Yeah, the
show?
original
No, I
one.
don't think any of us had any clue how big it was going to get. We knew it was a good show. But it wasn't cool back in our day. And
I think also if
no
you were
idea.
in junior high, you might have been a year or two younger, and that's when you discovered the show. Like, what is junior high all about? What is high school all about? So you a lot of people, I think we got fans that way also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Stacie, though, you were on it for almost 10 years before junior high with the kids of...
I literally grew up on this show.
You started when you were 7 or 8 or
Wow.
10.
Well,
10.
when I was 10.
Yeah, so
I'd
you
say
did
10
about-
for Kids of Degrassi Street.
Yeah.
So it was like a job. It was a part-time job that kind of became a full-time job later. But yeah, we knew it was something special, but it wasn't glossy. It wasn't, it was non-union guerrilla filmmaking at its best. Nothing glamorous about it at all. But we knew the topics were good, but it wasn't as popular when we were doing it, in the early days like it is now. Like Stefan said, it caught on much later.
I mean, the first year, I think, was I think we just thought it was a great summer job.
Yeah.
We're like, this is really cool. It's like, we're not going to theater camp, we're shooting a TV show, but no one's going to see it. Right. And And the truth is, I think it was only like a year or two later where it was actually really catching on CBC, and we were getting a massive fan base, enough so that by the time they did Schools Out, that was the highest rated television finale in Canada ever.
Wow.
And also that was before the 500 channel universe.
Yeah.
So there was only a couple channels to watch. But it was a big deal at the time, by the time when we were ending it. So. Right, Pat?
Yeah.
Now, we also want to open it. Is there any questions? Feel free to put up your hand.
Oh, good job.
Here.
So I've been a fan since Grassi Street. I was wondering, I heard a lot about you guys doing your own makeup and your own wardrobe and stuff. Is that an actuality?
All true.
Yep.
Yes. So, like I was saying, it was not glamorous. It was non-union. So we didn't have makeup. We didn't have, we had a wardrobe woman. We had Judy Shiner who would, cut up socks for my headbands. She would go to thrift stores for Joey's Hawaiian shirts and a lot of snake stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the rest of the stuff we brought in, some of the clothes were our own clothes. So yeah, it was really a mishmash. It was really low budget and not glamorous.
A lot of characters were developed actually from the actual actors themselves, like Amanda Steptoe, who played Spike. That's how she dressed. That's how she looked, and that's how she carried her hair.
Was like that, yeah.
So, they realized, wow, we've got to do something with this person because she's a character within herself. And then they developed the Spike character kind of based loosely on how Amanda would dress. But yeah, we would keep our wardrobe in milk crates on set, and I think I wore the same pair of jeans for an entire season. It was that kind of,
Yeah, we didn't have the hair and makeup. All the girls would be in this one mirror, doing their own makeup at the same time, and the guys would be like,
whatever.
This is it. All the zits, whatever. I remember they got a powder puff that they would give to us
there was
between
one.
takes, maybe by season 2. It wasn't even the first year. We get so excited the powder puff was coming. Get rid of all the sweat. It was really sad.
We all shared the same powder puff, though.
One communal blotting
bad
powder.
news.
Oh yeah, it was nasty though. I'm like, Judy, that's wet from Stefan's sweat. It's wet.
Why is it my sweat?
Yeah, it had to be your sweat.
So it just made more breakouts.
Yeah.
Exactly, we shared it all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yes, it was very true in that we was a very, very guerrilla style, low budget show that you would never make a show that way today. I mean, you might make an independent film possibly that way, but usually even on the lowest budget stuff, you have a hair and makeup department. And even when we did the next versions of Degrassi, we had everything changed.
Yeah.
Because it was a time where the unions were just starting, and it kind of dodged those rules at the time, but you just couldn't do that today.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
But it was fun. It got us close.
For all of our faults as a series in terms of how we dressed and how we looked, I think the audience could appreciate that and relate to that and realize that they weren't the glamorous people in their own schools. They were the average people with average, wardrobe and clothing, and we could all relate to those simple characters that we had on our show. We weren't 90210.
No,
let's
we
put it
weren't.
that way.
Yeah.
And I think in Canada, or at least worldwide, there were a lot of young people that could closely relate to how simple we were.
There's something to be said also about a classroom scene where, Joey's not necessarily in that one episode, but Joey's in that classroom because it was, in an extra situation on a show today, you could never afford Pat Mastroianni to be an extra in a scene. But because we were on this contract that they could use you through the episode, Pat and Stefan and Stacie would be in the background of scenes, which made things feel a little bit more real, I think also.
Yeah.
If you see us passing in a hallway shot, that's pretty cool. You just don't see that on TV shows.
Yeah,
that much.
we actually were in the background.
Yeah.
We were in the classrooms. We would hide on sets that we wouldn't be used as extras, to be honest, because we knew that they would try and find us.
Yeah. We would often hide.
But yeah, we were, and it kept it helped keep the show. There was no star system because, we were
Well, there was
extras
Pat.
one moment.
There was Joy Jeremiah,
and then
and then
there was
everyone
Pat. Pat was on his own echelon.
No. Just because I had my own trailer. And no, I didn't.
No, because you skipped dish duty.
I did skip
you tricked
dishes.
other
We all
people
skipped
into
dish
washing
duty.
his
We
dishes.
didn't know who actually showed up for dish duty. That was
Wait,
insane.
dish duty? You
We
gotta
had dish duty. This
Wow.
is again, yeah. We did our own dishes.
Wow.
We had
They
to peel
tried to make us do our own
potatoes.
dishes.
Yeah, well, they tried. Yeah.
We would carry props and we would carry sandbags and apple boxes to and from different locations on the set, cables or whatever. Again, there was no job that was underneath anybody. Everybody pitched in, everybody helped.
It improved as we went along. I felt
course
like
it did.
we weren't so required to do those things, but it did. At first, it was like you have to chip in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's true. That's true. But yeah, they also tried to keep us down to earth and modest about everything because, we were also starting to meet other actors on other shows and audition for other TV shows. And people would say to us, like, the things they make you do on your show, you wouldn't be allowed to do on another TV show.
Yeah.
But we didn't care. I think we were just excited to be doing something as a group, as a family, as a group of friends.
Sure. And it's all we knew. We didn't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah.
And they made it clear that we were all dispensable. I mean, there really was no
Egos.
anyone could be let go at any time if you didn't, pull your weight and
Wow.
Exactly.
get along.
Yeah. Any other questions? Back over there.
What was your favorite episode, either to film or to watch afterwards?
Stacie?
Anybody, go ahead.
Oh, sure.
I gotta think about it.
You know what I liked? I mean, I sometimes have answered this question by saying School's Out, but I'm going to change it today. I loved It's Creeps. It Creeps with Stacie as the
That was
killer
a
and
fun one, yeah.
Snake as the dum guy down the road. We all got to ham it up a little bit on camera, which we always were trying to be subdued with our performances. The director, Kit Hood, would always say to us, Pat, bring it down. You're going over the top a little bit and try to make it more real. So, but with this particular episode, we got to be silly and quirky and do all those fun things that we couldn't do. So I really got a kick out of It's Creeps.
The episode where we steal the car is still pretty fun in my memory, just because we were so young. And if anything, that was where they're like, whoa, they pulled out all the guns on this, and we had to have when you do a scene where you're looking through the window of a car, it's usually attached to a truck that has lights on it and the cameras, and so we're like, oh, we feel really professional because we have a camera truck today. And we were all really jealous because Pat got was allowed to be behind the wheel. I think you actually did a little driving.
I did all the driving. They had a stunt man that never got to do the stunt driving.
Right.
Because I did all of it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Totally illegal.
I know. You couldn't do that today with a 15-year-old kid behind the wheel.
Yeah.
This is going to sound really lame, but because we shot in the school so often, we didn't have a lot of location shoots. And there was the one where Caitlin is with Claude and she's going to spray paint on a factory wall. And I got to scale a barbed wire fence. So it was my action scene. I got to actually do that, and that was really exciting. Unfortunately, she gets caught on the barbed wire, but I got to do my own stunt.
Yeah.
That's about as exciting as it got. I don't even remember the name of that episode.
Yeah, I couldn't remember any of the names. To tell you the truth,
I'm
but-
really bad. And then School's Out that's not one of the episodes, but that was definitely probably
School's
the
Out was-
highlight for me.
Yeah, I think that was just because it felt like a finale also, and we had a little bit more of a budget, and we were able to.
And it was kind of like camp for a bit there. It was.
Well, yeah, like when we were doing the cottage stuff,
Yeah.
everyone was having a good old time at the hotel, and I was like, I have to be serious. I have to rescue some girls, and when I'm swimming in the lake, and I was just like, I want to take this seriously. Everyone else is having the best time.
I don't remember the hotel.
Do you not?
No, I don't know if I was there.
Yeah, you would have.
You were there.
That's either good or bad.
It was several years ago. I think you're allowed to forget this.
Any more questions? All the way in the back.
One thing I love about the show is that there was no taboo topics. I mean, you covered everything from abortion to suicide. Did there come a point where you just felt like, okay, this is a lot bigger than what we originally signed on for?
I think when we started getting fan mail too, we never got fan mail directly. The producers, it would go through the office, the producers, and they would read all our mail before it got to us. But yeah, and I think when we started actually kind of seeing the volume and the responses from people watching the show, it really does start to hit home that you're affecting people. Because in our bubble, we're just doing our job, and there's, we're hoping for some interesting storylines because we like the storylines and they're interesting, and we know we're doing a good thing, but we don't really get a sense of the impact until we go on a publicity trip and you see how many people show up or how many people want to talk to you about the show, and you hear people's stories. That's always really a really powerful event that really starts to make it hit home. So
Yeah.
for me, guys, and I've said this to you before, I mean, we didn't have social media back then, so we couldn't actually connect with the people that were watching the show directly like you can today. So when all these fan conventions started coming about and I was appearing by myself and fans would say, oh, what's Snake like and what's Caitlin up to and all that kind of stuff, I really it kind of made me realize that if I did a Degrassi tour with some of these guys, it would allow us that opportunity to reach out and say thank you to you guys and for you guys to meet us and realize that they're just real people like us. And this was sort of our way of reaching out to you, and to the point where I'm putting together Degrassi Palooza in Toronto with 25 cast. Again, I want them all to have that experience of connecting with the audience, because unfortunately we never really had that connection from you guys back then. So I love the fact that these little conventions that happen all over North America allow us that opportunity, even though it's 25 years late, just for us to say, hey, glad we were there for you, and thank you for being a fan, and I'm glad that the show touched you in some way. So it is meaningful to us that something we did so long ago meant that much.
Yeah, I think the actual, as far as signing on, what we thought we were getting into, I think it's pretty close to what we thought we were getting into. I mean, the whole idea of the show was, and they told us this, they wanted to show kids in real life situations, right? That a parent in a show most times, back then especially, with different strokes, the dad would come in and fix the situation, go, you shouldn't do drugs. And where life is not like that. Kids don't tell their parents everything. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they figure they can fix it themselves, or they just wait until it's way too late. And they sort of, we knew that's kind of how it was going to be. And I think the first episode is like Kiss Me Steph, right? Where, a girl is going home and then she goes out, she changes into some pretty slutty clothes. And that's probably something the kids did. I was like, do girls do that? I guess maybe they do. But that was something that we already knew, that there was a bit of an edge to the show. And, it was the same season when Spike got pregnant. That was a 13-year-old getting pregnant. I think even at our age, we knew this is going to go somewhere. And as actors, you also want to do those roles. So I don't think any of us was getting in this to have the show where everyone's happy. You want to get the acting role that you're like, oh man, my character got raped. Yay. I want that role. It sounds terrible, but it's true. You wanted the big episodes. You wanted the storylines that would challenge you. So I think we all sort of knew that that's what we were getting into. There was nothing that I think they throw at like Stacie that she turned away as a storyline. You're like, I want those
you
stories.
embraced the heavy episodes for sure. You wanted that.
Yeah. So we sort of knew what we were getting into a little bit.
But knowing that the show was on CBC, it made us also keep us our egos in check. It was kind of like, well, we are just a little Canadian show, right? There's nothing. We don't thump our chests in Canada. We don't lift up our celebrities. We're very approachable people, and we're very modest, and we're appreciative to what we have. But I think even back then, we knew that we were doing something no one else was doing, and that was kind of cool.
Is there a topic that you guys did not cover on the show? Because you went everything was covered.
I think there's topics that are just harder to tell. And I mean, it's always been an issue when you try to do certain drug stories, they're easier to tell because the consequences are more terrible. Right. But trying to do a marijuana story has always been a problem, because it's not like there's an instant I lost my mind and I'm jumping off. You do acid, you could really screw yourself up.
Yeah.
But marijuana was always a thing that almost fell into trying to tell an alcohol story, which is you need real consequences, and that's hard to do. So sometimes they would turn out to be comedic episodes where the characters are just embarrassing themselves. Right. I think suicide has always been a problem to tell a story, and I think they did it so responsibly that first time with Claude. Next Generation, we've had trouble how we tell those stories, because it is so difficult now, especially with social media, to not somehow glorify a kid's pain. And I think they did it in a way with Claude that was they were showing all the angles. Some people are angry afterwards when they're hearing that Claude killed himself. They're like, he's selfish. He did this to hurt. And it's the Degrassi franchise always has had a problem with telling that story, because they don't want copycats. And not to jump the generations, but I know on Next Generation we had a cutter, and we got a lot of copycats from that. And so they were like, we can't tell that story that way anymore. It's too difficult to we don't want people. We don't want to. They love the character and they want to connect. And that's you got to be careful how you treat a character, that it doesn't become glorification.
Because people are relating to the characters, so there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with telling the stories, like you said, because you don't want copycats. And that's right. With the suicide one, they did do their homework and they did really research like what was the proper way to tell the story. And they did deliberately cover all the angles, like you said, to make sure that, you know, it wasn't one-sided. You see how it affects everybody, not just the person that took his life. So, yeah, those are tough ones to tackle.
One of the things I wish we had done more of is more cultural diversity. That's one of the panels that we've got to talk about at Degrassi Palooza. That did we do enough? Could we have told more stories from a different background of culture? You know, we had the token Asian guy, the token black guy, the token black girl, but you know, there were characters on our show that were more subdued in the background. That some fans that watched this show really appreciated seeing this Indian girl on the show, and you know, and they actually wished more was developed with that character. So I think we might have been. It would have been nice to have told some stories from different cultural backgrounds.
You can watch it happen as the years go by.
Yeah.
How what the CBC or CTV or anyone was actually willing to show. Like, I think Snake's brother was gay on the show, but they never contemplated having a gay character go to Degrassi. By the time you get to like next class, like there's next generation, next class, like half that school's gay. Like half the school is like LGBTQ friendly, and it's not an issue about I'm coming out. It's an issue about going, if I'm transitioning, how do I date?
Yeah.
You know, if I'm you know, it's beyond just coming out. It's really a bigger, like we try to like.
been good,
so
yeah.
they're more. It's a bigger universe is how we think. But back then, you know, trying to get I think a network on board was they're like, oh, well, if you want to tell that story, do you really think the audience is ready for that? We're like, well, as teenagers, I think we're ready.
Yeah.
But they're thinking, you know, so it's always trying to find the teenager's perspective, but get the adults on board, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
One thing about Canadian television is that none of our episodes were ever preempted in Canada. In England and in America, many of our stories were never aired because it was just too taboo, like the Spike pregnancy and the abortion
Really?
episodes.
Yeah.
In
Or
England,
they
yeah.
did
In England,
alternate
the
ending.
interracial
Yeah.
Really?
interracial dating, I believe, was
They
preempted.
couldn't handle it.
Interracial dating, we
gosh.
got so much hate mail. It was like,
Oh, yeah.
it was like BLT
Yeah, it's
dating
crazy.
Michelle, and we were like, oh my God, like you
Yeah.
really didn't. So listen, on the internet today, it's like it doesn't take you long to find some really terrible people.
Yeah,
But when they
of
have to
course.
mail you this stuff,
Yeah.
you're like, wow, you took some time. You
They
know?
can
wrote
still
it
hide. They can still
down,
hide
yeah.
behind the
Stamp.
writing, but
I think
yeah,
we
it
were
takes more
really-
energy.
Yeah, I think we were really expecting some terrible stuff with the abortion storylines in Canada. We didn't get that at all. We actually got a lot of support for our characters.
Yeah.
The States, different story.
Yeah.
Interracial dating, that's the one that freaked us out the most. We're like, really?
Yeah.
People feel that way? It's like, and of course, it's all adults saying you shouldn't be showing these kids do it. Like, but we got adults saying that throughout the series about
Yeah.
a lot of things. But it's what you don't expect sometimes. It freaks you
Yeah.
out. You know?
Well, that's the thing. Like when you get these people sending mail and stuff like that, does that motivate you to want to continue to tell that story? Does that kind of scare
sure.
you a little bit that you want to take a step back?
Makes me want to tell it more.
Yeah, I don't think we ever got afraid to tell a story. I think the producers were more afraid than we were. You know? I
Yeah.
remember-
Well, they're taking the risks.
that there would be someone that would take it too far. I mean, we have a very avid fan base. There's no doubt about it. And it's like our stories are not safe. People get emotionally attached to them, and it's something that I don't think we ever looked at like we'll get in trouble for with fans. It's hard to say because all I know is that we always wanted to go further. I think you know. Pat wanted to show his butt.
I did.
Pat's like, please let me walk naked in an episode.
Yeah.
I really want to do that.
I needed to
His
stretch.
dreams
And it
came
happened.
true.
Yeah. Any other questions?
What was it like to see your character grow? Example for you going from student to teacher to principal.
Well, Pat and I were talking about this the other day, and it's like we were talking about whether when we started doing Next Generation, like is this where we hoped our characters would end up? You know, that Joey Jeremiah has a used car lot, you know, and I think Pat's like, I don't like how that is for Joey, at least when we first started doing it.
Yeah.
You know? And would Snake really have ended up being school principal? I could see that happening. I could see him getting into education. It makes a lot of sense, actually. It makes a lot of sense. Caitlin has the most glorious outcome where she's like, you know, a reporter, traveling the world. She's got, what is it, Ryan's Planet or something?
Ryan's place. She's hosting her own environmental show.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, right, Caitlin.
But then she disappears somewhere. At
She's
the
dating
end.
Kevin Smith or something, you know?
And then she's gone.
So I think there's something to be said about, you have to also, you know, let them take you down that journey as far as what they're writing. I mean, you can suggest things, but it's really interesting to watch where Joey went. For me, I think the idea of him being a used car salesman kind of makes a lot of sense, and he's doing well. You know,
It was nice they gave you the whole the stepdad kind of storyline too, because that gave you that showed the warmth of Joey too. He was more than just a used car salesman.
No, true, but also Stefan being on the show and being an adult leader, so to speak, he gave it that legitimacy I think that the show needed, because he is a spokesperson for our generation, but he also was able to morph into a good fatherly figure, I guess, for the next gen. In the next class?
Sure. I mean, what was terrible, what felt terrible but felt very true was that Snake, by the end, by the last couple seasons we've been shooting, he's really become Mr. Radich, and it's really sad because the pressure has got so bad that he's at the beginning of Next Generation. He's the teacher that kids can come and talk to, but he's gone through so much crap between then and next class that
hard.
Well, he's just you're suspended. I have no choice but to suspend you. Before it'd be let's talk this out, get the parents to figure this out. But you could see that. Listen, going to Degrassi is not an easy place to go to school. If you make it out alive, that's pretty amazing. And I try to keep that school in check. It's probably pretty hard. So watching Snake go to that direction was kind of I guess that's the human experience, that you suddenly become I've got to keep this school in check. I can't be everyone's friend, you know? So.
You should just burn that place down.
Oh, man, so many times. So many times.
Now, how was it like, to have people in Next Gen and Next Class, these group of actors come in and meet you? Did you find that they, felt a lot of pressure to keep the show going and as exciting, or?
I mean, when we first started Next Class, so Miriam comes on as Emma. And I think that was really important for a lot of the fans, going, wow. And first of all, everyone got excited about the idea of, oh yeah, Spike's kid would be going into junior high. She'd be going, and that makes a lot of sense, but what we want to see where they're at. I don't think any of them had seen the show. If they'd heard about the show, they knew through their agents and their parents are this is kind of big.
Or they'd lie.
Okay, this is a big deal.
You think they do research before
you
going in?
sure
Yeah.
Some of them, I think, did.
Yeah.
Most of them didn't.
But then they get the audition and they're being told this is a big deal. You do your research after. They haven't been watching it. Their parents are all in.
Yeah.
Their parents were so excited, know.
Yeah.
But it's so much television also. And by the time we got to this point on Next Generation, where I was telling the story yesterday where Christine Prosperi, who played Imogen on Next Generation, came to me one day and she was like, man, I just watched old Degrassi. It was so nuts. And I'm like, yeah, totally, right? And she's like, yeah, Drake was so young. And I'm like, oh, no, it goes way further than that. Way further. And it's it's a lot of TV. So, and the greatest thing, though, is everyone does have their generation that they love, So what's the nicest thing to hear is when we do conventions and stuff, and we have young fans here. Some of them started off in Next Class, which is on Netflix, and they hear, oh, there's Next Generation, and they go back and they watch Next Generation, and they're like, oh, wait, there's the 80s version? I got to watch Joey Jeremiah as a kid, And so that they've come, and then we have some fans that are starting backwards and starting with the old show. And it's really nice to see, because there are great lessons in the comparisons of how life has changed and how much it stays the same, So it's a trip.
And then there's Kids Of. You can't forget Kids Of. Then it goes back even further to elementary school levels. So there really is a generation for everybody, and it's cool for young people to discover the previous versions of the show, because those topics still relate to many of them today. Yeah, we didn't have cell phones. Yeah, we didn't have the internet, but you can see what it must have been like for your parents to grow up in a time that was so much simpler, I think. But still, it's tough being a kid.
Yeah, I think I said the problems. I made a quote one time where it was the problems are the same. It's the drugs that are changing, and it's the problems that kids are going to the drugs for in the first place are always the same problems.
But it's not even just it's the social media aspect as well. There's all kinds of
pressures,
issues with that as well, online dating and the predators and
with the Joey
it's Degrassi. It's the original Degrassi issues times 20, basically.
It feels that way.
Yeah, if anything, there's a little more strange solitude with the original Degrassi, where if a kid wanted to ask out another kid, it was them getting the the courage to ask them out, versus online pics that, there are generations now when we tell those stories, and also you have to be kind to social media and how this generation looks at it the same way people had to be kind about how we interacted as kids and treated with respect. So the speed of things today is just so different, but those emotions are all the same. A guy going to a girl's house with a condom and saying, "You want to do it," like Pat did. What did you say?
I want it, you want it, let's do it.
That's right. It's how you get there. Maybe you might be a social media way of getting there nowadays, but that kid is still going to try to get the girl and her go no, and get rejected. But it's how fast you get there now. That's the scary thing with where the world has gone. But emotionally, it still feels the same. I think.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Or Mayor.
Mayor. Oh.
Oh, Mayor's here.
Mayor, Bernadette Clement.
Oh, we do get to meet you.
We've heard many good things about you. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So my name is Bernadette, and I'm the mayor of Cornwall, and so I want to officially welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And hello, everybody. I'm a fan of the first.
Yay.
I was kind of old then watching it, so I was guiltily watching it with my little brother.
Nice.
And I agree with your point that there probably could have been more diversity, but that interracial dating for me, my father's black, my mother's white, it felt very lonely then. Barack Obama has made it cool since then, but back then it was not.
Yes.
And so it was very comforting to me personally.
Oh, good.
And I thank the show for that. And I want to just ask you, I want to say to you that I'm, when you meet people and you see them, and you see them on TV, and then I see you and you're so eloquent and so smart, it just is so like you were in the show. I just find that disconcerting.
It's upsetting. You're like, they shouldn't be like
I
this.
hope we're not disappointing you.
They're way too accepting, and that's very nice of you to say.
That is really nice.
When-
Thank you.
when
we
you've
love
been
you.
when you've been
You really are.
when you've been talking about something for so long that you're so proud of, it's easy to talk about Degrassi, and it's easy to talk about it with these guys. We're a family. We love what we did. We're proud of what we got to be a part of. Just like Canada should be proud that this is a homegrown show that we were able to create in Canada for Canadians, but the world got it. And, that used to be our calling card up until Drake. People would say, "You're from Canada. You're from Canada, Degrassi."
Drake sort of amplified things in a way that was uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Exactly. But you know what? We're proud. And when we talk about Degrassi, we talk about it like it's part of our family. And, we're glad that it moved you and it touched you and it made you feel happy and proud. Because, again, this is what we are. We're just simple people growing up in a weird time in our lives, and we made it through to the other side. And then hopefully those lessons we teach our kids, one day. And I love that parents are showing the show to their kids with pride and saying, that's the world we grew up in, but you're going through that crazy stuff too.
Well, and if I'm mayor of Cornwall now, it's a little bit in part because of the show.
Thank you.
Right?
I would have voted for
Because
you.
we get but we get to places when we feel supported
Yes.
and less lonely.
Yes.
And so that's what Degrassi was for me.
Thank
and
you.
see, thank you so much. And see, this is so nice for us to be doing these events because we feel we've been supported by you guys all this time. And
Yep.
it's like we grew up together. Like
Yep.
it wasn't cool for us even back in the day. But so now when people want to talk about the show, it's nostalgic for all of us. So I really do appreciate it
Yeah.
too. So thank you, all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have the
all
power to make it
survived.
Degrassi Day in Cornwall, by the way. So. Okay, we'll figure it out.
Now, how do you manage your public lives? How do you manage being recognized, having all that? I have a hard time with it, even as mayor. And I know that it's important, but it's also not always easy.
You probably have it worse than we do because, you're...
Because people want things from you, probably. Yeah.
And I don't mean worse, like it's a bad thing, but I in the sense of getting recognized, I mean, it doesn't... we still get recognized all the time.
Yeah.
But it's not to the point where it really impedes, I think, our everyday lives.
I think it impedes if you let it impede.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us are shrinking violets at the same time that are afraid to get recognized. There are times where you're like, I'm not in the mood when you're walking down the street. But also, listen, I mean, I got married and it was like on ET Canada that I was like, because I posted something on Instagram and it's like, celebrity Stefan Brogren. I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. You know, like, so you deal with it well. Listen, when we do these things, it's so much love that it feels really good. And it feels really good to see how it touches people in different ways and different generations, you know? And we all get recognized a fair amount, but it's for good reasons. I'll tell you, the funniest thing that happens though is when we were younger, you definitely get a lot more kids that are like, "Yo, man, your show sucks," you know.
Yeah. No, exactly.
But you know, you go out now, and I remember a guy is like, "Oh, this guy's such a bro, and he's gonna like bother me," and he was drunk at this bar, and he came up to me, but he's in a suit, so he's looking a little bit like a Bay Street guy. And he was like, so you're on that show, right? And I was like, oh, he's just trying to impress some girl or something. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I just want to say that show saved my life. And I was like, oh no! I had a really bad upbringing. I was gonna cry. Like he was like totally, that guy when he was younger would not have had that conversation with me, but had obviously recognized himself in that. And that, like, you know, when you get older, you recognize what really helped you through. And he's like, it really helped. He's like, I'm glad and he actually literally said, I'm glad I'm this age now that I can say that. So. Yeah, and honestly, the diversity thing, I almost want to be on that panel, Pat, because I witnessed so much behind the scenes with writers so worried all the time about how diverse Degrassi was.
Well, I know the show got diverse with your generation,
but not enough.
But
and it was
about,
and like even back then, like how it's grown, where it started, it's always a concern because you want to include everybody because it's so easy to miss yourself in something, and you go, well, I try to see myself in that person, but when you really see, like, it's not often that you get to do that, and I think Degrassi was progressive a little bit at the time, but could have been so much more.
Right.
I want to be on that panel.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Mayor.
Je suis fière de vous recevoir ici à Cornwall. Je suis fière de votre travail. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. Degrassi Day.
So who wants to follow the mayor?
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
brave soul.
Ask too. Ask how many you want.
Was there a lot of intra-office dating?
Yes, lots. You know, we were teenagers, and
Enough said.
yeah, and so yeah, you get crushes, and you know, there's parties, and you kiss, and like whatever. And it was the same with the new kids on the show. Like listen, you can't get teenagers on a set without crushes starting. You know, it's funny, like even like with us, but like every generation, I'm like, oh my god, they hooked up. Like you're always shocked. You're like, no way, I never knew they had crushes on each other. Like we had and also our high school lives intermingled with our cast lives. Like these guys were friends with some of my friends in high school, and it was we had a real, true teenage life, if you want to say. Like there was definitely an opportunity to grow up. You know, we weren't older, we weren't cooler or more mature than anyone else.
Just know that, you know, I know people love to hear the dirt, like the who kissed who on set, but really, I want you guys to know that we were growing up at the exact same time as our characters were, as you guys were watching the show. We did a lot of the same silly, stupid stuff that you guys did as well.
And the characters did.
And the characters did. So we would often get in trouble. We were saying to some fans yesterday at our VIP brunch, you know, that a lot of the stories that you watched were sort of things that we did in real life as well. I stole the set van with the cast in it and took it for a joyride.
We had a party and we all took caffeine pills to stay up the next day on set. And they found out, we got in so much trouble. And the next thing you know, Michelle's taking caffeine pills on the show. So listen, we were teenagers. And there's so much. We all look back, we're like, pretending that didn't happen. Oh, that definitely happened. No, I'm pretending that didn't happen. And that was sort of the great thing is like, and also that's why I think the show works. Like Amanda playing Spike is a 13-year-old, play a girl who got pregnant, and in real life she's never had sex, and I don't think she kissed anyone at that point. That embarrassment and that humiliation is coming across in her performance in a big way because she's so like it's more difficult than a 22-year-old playing a 13-year-old, right? So I think it's kind of key for the show. We're not into social media.
So who did Drake kiss? No, I'm kidding.
Everybody.
You had two questions.
Yeah, what's your second question?
Oh, no, because I asked one earlier.
Oh, okay.
I see.
Supergirl wants to ask a question.
I was just wondering, like he was saying earlier, you guys touched a lot of topics. Was there any episodes that were hard, like there were some parts that was hard to watch? Was there any that were hard to film? Do you like?
You know, like we were saying, you kind of want the hard topics. I've had stuff that I've had to direct that was harder than to act in, like because I just don't want to. Because also you have to talk to the actor, and it's like a terrible thing's happening. You know, where it's the actors are always a little bit stronger when it comes to dealing with that thing. I find sometimes. Yeah. It's more the embarrassing stuff sometimes that's harder. You know, Pat, I'm sure, had a lot of issues walking naked through the hallway, and I probably couldn't have done it. You know, like,
Yeah, long story short, they basically said this is what Joey would do to get a car. You know, and I'm like, you're absolutely right, but I still don't want to show my bum to the country. And
let alone the full crew, most of which who don't have to be there that day, are on set.
You're right, Stefan. I showed up on set that day, and the accountants were there. Like, when are the accountants on set for this? So the crew were wonderful. The cast were wonderful. It is obviously a very memorable moment. It's something that I look back now and laugh about. But yeah, at the time, as an actor, you want to lay it all out on the line. You want to basically see how far are you willing to go to do a performance and separate yourself and your own insecurities from your character to put on an act. And I took my acting very, very seriously back then, and I was able to do something that I didn't think I could do. And just like these guys were able to step up their game when it was necessary. So, yeah, I mean, these are the way we test ourselves, because we were learning as we were doing our jobs on set on a TV show that everybody was watching.
Stace?
I remember being a little embarrassed having to do the Rumor Has It, where Caitlin's questioning her sexuality. And it wasn't so much during the shooting that I was embarrassed, because I loved having the storyline and I knew it was important. I think it was more worried about the reaction of my peers at my normal school after the fact. Because, they're not, the show wasn't as popular at that point, and they're teenagers. And so there was a little bit of embarrassment there. And then, didn't my sister come out a few years later? And I was like really glad that I had been, a part of doing that episode that made her feel comfortable to come out. So go figure.
Small world.
I wasn't embarrassed by anything. I was
He was the stud of Degrassi.
No, I mean, honestly, there's times where I think at one point they said they wanted to give me a mohawk, and I think I was a little nervous about that. But I'll tell you, kids, like the kids on the show, Next Gen, you could say, yeah, we want to give you a mohawk. They'll be like, yep, whatever you want. Totally fine. I'm like, way braver than we were in some ways.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, it's hard to say when it's like you know what, it's probably more after the fact, right? When you're like, what's the reaction going to be?
Yeah.
So, good question.
Yeah, because we were still, again, like we were going through our own issues at the same time as dealing with our characters' issues. It was a real balance between two worlds.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But let me remind everybody that we were always told by the producers and the writers and the people that were the adults that they constantly reminded us, hey, you guys aren't professional therapists. You don't really know all the background and research that we do when we write these storylines. Don't feel like you have this obligation to speak on behalf of a topic or what your character has done, because you don't know what you're talking about. Like, please let people know that they can go to their guidance counselor, they can go to their parents or their teacher, that you are not their therapists. Because Amanda, who played Spike, would always get letters from young people saying, I really like my boyfriend. Should I be intimate with him? And like, Amanda didn't even have sex at that time. So how can she possibly give advice to a young person when she doesn't know herself, right? So we were always reminded by the producers that you guys are just actors and you're living it as well while we're telling these stories. So it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah. And on the other hand, too, just to add to that, sometimes doing an episode would almost be therapeutical. It's like we are dealing with two different lives, like our real lives and our lives on the show. And sometimes, like, my parents went through a divorce, and that became an episode as well. And but it was kind of an outlet sometimes doing these episodes, because it gave me, you could be in your character. It was a safe place to be, able to show those emotions, and so it helped in a way too. So cool. Double-edged sword, I guess.
And actors are kind of gluttons for punishment that way. Like you kind of. I think you get into acting sometimes because you're like, wouldn't it be interesting to feel those emotions that I don't necessarily, sometimes you're going through it in real life and sometimes you're like, that'd be really, I want to explore that. That's why I think acting is therapeutic for so many actors and damaging for others. But yeah, it's like, it's always that situation where you find yourself embracing and wanting to talk to people about it, but not always having all the answers for things, you know? So.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Any more questions?
I thought you did all the research.
Yeah.
You were doing all the questions.
Like here.
You don't know how nervous Phyllis is right now. When I pulled Stefan over to the booth, Phyllis told me not to do it for 5 minutes.
I'm just here, being here.
I want you to ask
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah, you
I
want-
don't. I love y'all.
You said-
I don't have a lot of questions.
You said you had 40 questions.
When you're a huge fan, you kind of know a lot about the characters because you already researched them
Yeah,
before.
she already did the research.
Yeah, so I know a lot, and so I'm just listening to you guys speak. It's very interesting to be beside you guys. It's shocking. So I'll shut up.
You're sweet. You're sweet.
Oh my God.
Did you have one? There you go.
Even though it wasn't necessarily glamorous being on the set all the time, was it hard for you guys after the show ended to transition to like regular lives, even if being that for so long and all together all the time?
Yeah. I think it was, I'll speak for myself personally, but I know that after the show ended, I mean, we were a family for so long, and that was kind of like our safe place where we all understood each other. And then I think we were excited to go in different directions, but at the same time, it's like, now what? Like, it was totally different. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do. I didn't even know if I wanted to continue acting or not, because it's kind of what I started when I was 10, so it's kind of all I knew how to do. So I was wrestling with, what school do I go to? Do I go to school? Do I have enough to go to school at this point? Do I want to move to LA because I have family that, you know, so there's a lot of questions, and it was a struggle for a long time trying to find my path. I'm still lost, but no, I'm joking. I'm very happy. Yes.
No, I think that, you know, there was something liberating after we finished the show that, you know, we started doing just like guest spots on other shows. And there was a point where it was just so funny because I've been playing the character for so long, but that you're kind of hungry to play something else. And I think we were all kind of ready, especially after the show was over, to go, let's see what else is out there. And, you know, I know Pat and I were doing like whatever show was in town would be like a constant flow of, like, Stace also, we're just like, you're doing guest spots, and whether it be like Doc or Sue Thomas FBI or, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff where you're like, oh, this is your, you know, I'm going to do 3 days on Nikita. That'll be fun, you know. And it's more about the work than it is about, and the truth is, all three of us get recognized all the time still. It's just the way it is. It's like, but we don't go out looking for it, but that's not why you get into acting. You know, it's like more than anything else, you just want to be able to go and work with other people. And, you know, I really enjoy working on the other side of the camera. That's what I found I really like doing, and spent more time trying to get in on those angles, you know. So I think that there's a relief when it's over, and there's also such great joy when we do things like this and have people that come and tell us about the show. It's so nice. But I think that we were all so ready to move on and come back and do other things. And it's like, it doesn't dominate our lives. We don't talk about Degrassi all the time. And then when we get together, we talk about Degrassi all the time. You know?
There was 10 years where I didn't even mention the D word. 10 years that went by. But then we get to a certain age or a time in our life where you want to embrace your nostalgia, you want to embrace your childhood years and whatnot. And I think, again, this is why pop culture events like this are so great, because you see those toys that the vendors are selling going, I had one of those. And, you know, nostalgia right now for folks like us in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, it's important to reflect. And it's important to remember simpler times. And for us, Degrassi is something that is so ingrained in our brain. But again, Stefan and I, you know, we don't talk every day. We don't talk about the old times every time we're together, but it is nice to have that safe place to talk about. And for me, Degrassi is one of the best 5 years of my life, but I had so many other amazing times in my life that are completely separate from the show.
You went to Africa to shoot.
Yeah, I shot a movie in Africa, but I worked with my dad for 10 years in the construction business, and I got to be proud and work with my dad and watch him do his thing and be in his glory for 10 years. And now I'm booking TV actors at other conventions around the world, and that's kind of neat and fun. But at the end of the day, it's whatever makes you happy, right?
I think a lot of it is getting past the idea of expectations and what people expect of you, having been on a show, and feeling like you have to prove yourself. Because we're also in a business, we grew up in a business where you're constantly having to, put yourself out there and deal with rejection or not. And so a lot of it was just, I think, coming to peace with ourselves, and it was a chance for us to rediscover ourselves and what path we wanted to go on. And that doesn't happen overnight. So yeah, it was eye-opening, but I think we all survived. So
But I do know that this group of friends and this family, we're ready to get together and we're ready to see each other again and reminisce and celebrate what we did. And again, I bring up Degrassi Palooza because 25 of us are going to get together for the first time in 25 years.
Who have very different careers now. Like people are lawyers and that were on that show, which blows my mind. And professors and
it's going to be fun. I mean, it's going to be really fun to see all these people and see where they're at.
And it's nice to revisit. It's like you don't want to do it every day. When I'm directing a show called Holly Hobby, and the kids didn't know who I was on that at all until the very end, where they're like, "Did you just shoot a Drake video?" And I'm like, "Yeah." "Why are you in a Drake video?" And all the parents are like, "You don't know who he is." They're like, "No, we need explanations." It's like, I used to act when I was your age too, So, which is so sweet and fun, but I don't think about it. We don't think about it on a day-to-day thing. Here we get to reminisce.
Yeah.
These moments are really special for us as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Any more questions?
Guy with the shirt.
Guy with the shirt.
Not the topless guy, the guy with the shirt.
The guy with two shirts, actually.
So school's out, I think, marked the first time on Canadian broadcast television. A certain swear word was said on...
couple, more than one.
Yeah, first and second, I believe. Yeah. So how many takes that?
How many versions?
We did. If you didn't know, we swore on School's Out. We said the F word, and I try not to swear in these. I can be pretty crass sometimes, so I try not to swear when especially when kids are present. But we did say the F word. I say it first because I'm referring to Joey messing around with Tessa Campanelli. No, he's dating Caitlin, but messing around with Tessa Campanelli also. And then Caitlin right after was like, "You did this."
And I call him something as well. So what we did, I don't think it took so many takes necessarily, but we did have to do alternate versions because they weren't sure what was going to be allowed and what wasn't. So they substituted words that really didn't have the same feel.
You were bonging Tessa Campanelli.
You were screwing, or you broomhead. Like that one just, you can say that as angrily as you want. It just doesn't have the same.
It's not going to come across, punch,
It turned out that, and we didn't think they were actually going to do it, but CBC said as long as part 2 of the show airs after 9 p.m., then you can use the F word. And we're like, that's really interesting. That's how they got away with it. I don't think they ever even made another version of it, as far as I know. Maybe for I think that's it.
Well, we did shoot other.
We did shoot other versions,
other scenes, but I don't think. Yeah, they were never used anywhere.
No.
That I'm aware of.
But yeah, it was kind of radical, I think, at the time. But I think you see it on television all the time now. People using a certain language, but it's at the time it felt pretty cool.
and we're sorry if you were watching it with your parents at the time.
You could say that about half the episodes of Degrassi, though. To tell you the truth.
Any other?
I think we're going to wrap it up soon. Yes, because.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll give it one more.
One more question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah.
One more.
I know, it's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure.
With your dad for 10 years, where would you all be if you hadn't gone through this whole process?
Oh,
of your lives?
jeez.
Yeah.
What job could you imagine yourself having other than that?
That is a good last question.
We were talking about that too, actually, earlier.
I have no backup. I can't do anything else except work in the entertainment industry. I don't know how to do anything. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like.
Writing or journalism. Those were always, well, you know what? My problem was I always wanted to do too many things. Psychiatry. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be an anthropologist. And I was kind of like, I don't know which direction to go in. And I really should have gone to university because I recommend that highly to anybody, especially you, young lady. If you want to get an idea of, trying different things. Because we spent so long, in one profession that, I feel like I missed out on maybe some other opportunities. But at the same time, it also afforded me other opportunities. So.
it's amazing what doors open up sometimes. Like I never thought I'd be booking talent for conventions ever. It just happened. I loved comic books. I collected them for a while, and then I got into this world of pop culture and comic conventions, and one thing led to another. And hanging out with these guys all over North America. Like Stacie and I are going to Regina next weekend for a convention in Regina. I know, right? But there are fans there too that are excited to meet the cast. And but at the end of the day, who knows what fate would have offered all of us or any of us? I mean, there could be another guy sitting here saying, "Yeah, I love playing Joey Jeremiah." It's amazing what things could have happened, right? But you never know unless you try. And if that's any kind of advice I can give anybody, that it's never too late to try anything. And you could be 14 or you can be 44. It doesn't matter. Just go for it.
We have friends that had backup plans also, by the way, that were like, they got their teaching degree and still are in the entertainment industry because that's where they were going and they knew that they wanted to do it. And so it's not necessarily that like you have to have a backup. I mean, it's very nice to have a dream and then still go, well, I still have this career happening, and I mean, for most of us, I think we had other interests. I mean, my other interest was in entertainment, though. I wanted to direct. And my brother was acting when he was a kid also, but he owns a CGI company now. He does special effects. And he was into art at the same time, so he was led in that direction. So the entertainment industry was our backup plan, I think, a little bit, which is a nice thing to have that in sort of in your back pocket. It might be been helpful that we were in Toronto. Yeah. But I don't know. I think it's always important to follow your dreams and at the same time be able to go, I know what I'm going to do if I have to.
And just please don't ever get into radio. That's
True.
That is so mean.
Just never radio.
I couldn't recommend it enough.
I agree.
Radio rocks.
So true. No, just kidding. Well, thank you guys very much. Phyllis, do you feel good?
I feel yesterday when I met you, I was sweating.
No, but I also like Phyllis that like you really have been listening to us. Also, you're like, tell me more stories. I want to know more stories.
Yeah, no, I was sweating like crazy yesterday. Yeah, but yeah, it was great to meet you, and I'm sure everyone.
You guys are great.
Thank you guys so much.
again
There's
for
so many
having
great
us.
questions. Holy.
Good job. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Yeah.